Y'all know Valve, that company that is notoriously known for making fantastic duologies. They got bangers such as Counter-Strike 1, Counter-Strike 2, Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, Portal 1, Portal 2, Team Fortress 1, Team Fortress 2, and then there's Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. I'm starting to notice a trend here where they're afraid of the number 3 or something. But of all of their games they've done, there is one that stands among the top as a masterpiece even 15 years later. And if you clicked on this video, you know what we're going to be talking about here. That is going to be Left 4 Dead 2. It blows my mind this game is already 15 years old and it still stands among just like the podium of some of the greatest games ever made, especially in the zombie genre, which has gotten so oversaturated in the past few years. I love zombies, and there's some games I play, I'm like, this is boring and this isn't good. I can always know that I can fire up some Left 4 Dead 2 and have a great time, whether I'm playing with bots or friends, if I had any of those, but that's besides the point. We are going to be talking about what makes this game so special and why it is a masterpiece 15 years later. Let's jump into arguably the most important part of playing a video game, the gameplay. The gameplay loop of Left 4 Dead 2 is quite simple. It's literally just get from point A to point B. The survivors are somewhere they don't want to be, and they want to get out of there. But in Left 4 Dead 2, it's the areas that you play through that make it so memorable, that make the whole plot of going from point A to point B seem like you have an end goal, because you do. They're trying to get to New Orleans. The game starts with them in a burning hotel and them fighting their way to the bottom floor to get out and get onto the streets, and then they have to fight their way through the streets of New Orleans and make it through a mall, how original by the way, and then make it to a stock car at the end of the mall and cruise out of there. Then they take this stock car and they drive it for miles until it gets stuck on the highway and they have to go back on foot, and they make their way all the way out to a giant fairground in Dark Carnival, which is by far the best campaign in this entire game. It's just amazing. And then they have to set off fireworks to signal a nearby helicopter they found. This helicopter takes them out to Swamp Fever until these survivors just having the worst possible luck with any sort of rescue. The pilot was infected and Nick shoots him in the face, and they crash the helicopter. They get out and they have to fight through the murky swamps of Swamp Fever. And then on to Swamp Fever, they move to, at the very end, they meet Virgil the Talking Boat at the Swamp House Plantation. And then Virgil takes them to Hard Rain, where he gets thirsty and he needs some gas. And then actually, Hard Rain is really cool, because this one you have to circle around, so you need to make sure you don't use your supplies all at once, and because you're going to need them for the way back. And then you give Virgil his gas juice, and he sends you off to New Orleans. And they fight their way through what you'd hope would be the desolate streets of New Orleans, but it's still really packed with zombies, wouldn't you know? And then they go all the way into the middle of New Orleans. They see fighter jets flying by, bombing the place. And they are finally able to get a hold of the military on a bridge. And they have to fight like hell and run like hell to get off this bridge and get to the military chopper. They can fly away, hopefully to safety, except nobody knows what happens to them at the end of the game. But that's not important. It's the fact that the locations you play in are memorable. Alright, now here we are at the fun part. We get to talk about guns. I love guns, but they are a huge part of any sort of zombie media. Take Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead and his Colt Python, Leon from Resident Evil and the Matilda, Abraham Ford from The Walking Dead and his M16. They're a huge part of any sort of zombie media because that's usually how you kill a zombie. Shoot him in the head or destroy the brain. So, Left 4 Dead 2 has a whole ton of guns that we're about to go through. So far, you've seen me use the dual pistols, the Magnum, the Uzi, the silent submachine gun right here. Now we have the pump shotgun. This one's a lot slower, but as you know, shotgun's slower, but they got more firepower. We have the chrome shotgun, which is roughly the same thing as the shotgun. I never quite understood what it is. I think it does a little bit more damage. Now we're on to the AK-47, classic Soviet Russian gun. This fast, the American M16, my personal favorite gun in all of the game. Then we move on to the Desert Rifle, which this is a cool thing that kind of does with the lore. It kind of proves that the military focused their stuff from the Middle East onto what was happening back in America. Here's the TAC shotgun, here's the SPAS shotgun, and then finally you have the snipers, which consist of the hunting rifle and the military sniper, both of which are really solid choices, but I'd go with the military sniper. It has the same magnification as a hunting rifle and a bigger clip. Are we finally done? Is that all of the guns? That was a lot, and I was definitely lagging behind there a little bit. And nope, of course we're not done. There was 3 more weapons added in the Last Stand update about 3 years ago now in 2021, which added the AWP from Counter-Strike, a scoped assault rifle, and another sniper rifle. I don't actually know what the other 2 are called, just because I was never a huge Counter-Strike person, so unfortunately I don't really know their names. But the AWP, super strong, again, a slow rate of fire. Then you have the scoped assault rifle, which has a much faster rate of fire, but you can't actually aim down the scope with it. It just kind of like zooms forward, kind of the Counter-Strike meme of like just inching your neck closer, which I always thought was kind of funny. And then there's another sniper rifle, which is very powerful. I always like using them. It's kind of fun to just like pop them off and not really even like use the scope to just get that like hit with them because of how powerful they are. They just knock back zombies. I think it's kind of fun. One last thing I also just realized at the very end of that clip while editing this, I completely forgot to grab or even talk about the MP5, which was the last gun. So there was 4 weapons added with the Last Stand update. Well, actually 4 firearms and there was 2 melee weapons, but it's an MP5. It's a classic, you know, it's been in almost every shooter. It's a classic H&K MP5. It's got a really nice rate of fire, and it's pretty powerful too, especially for it being a submachine gun. I tend to prefer the ARs in the game over the SMGs, but every now and then I'll pick up the MP5. It sounds amazing. All the weapons are super crisp and like crunchy. But I just realized I completely forgot to add that part, and I was like, I should probably, you know, talk about that. And while on the topic of talking about the weapons, we also talk about the melee weapons, because Left 4 Dead 2 has quite a large amount of melee weapons with some extras that were added in the Last Stand update. So here's what we're going to do for the melee weapons. Some of these are a real pain in the ass to find, and some of them are campaign specific, kind of like the Nightstick, which I believe only spawns in the parish. So I'm just going to pull up a picture of all of the melee weapons, and we're going to go through them. You have the chainsaw, very classic zombie weapon. You have the knife from Counter-Strike, a fire axe, a shovel, a katana, a machete, a nightstick, a frying pan, an electric guitar, a golf club, a crowbar, which I think is a reference to Half-Life, a baseball bat, a cricket bat, and a pitchfork. The pitchfork and shovel were added in the Last Stand update, and both of the both blunt and bladed variety of weapons have a unique little perk with them. The blunt, when you hit them, they kind of like stagger for a little bit and then fall over, versus the bladed variety, they fall immediately. So as for stats wise, and personally, I like to use the bladed weapons, because if there is a million zombies behind me and I'm running and I need to just get through them, I'm gonna want something that's gonna slice right through, nice and easy, not have any issues with it, so I can just keep running, instead of a blunt weapon where I kind of have to like wait for the zombie to fall. However, I can get down with a baseball bat every now and then, but overall I gotta go with the bladed variety. I'm sure at the beginning of the video, if you're still here from the start, which if you are, I thank you, you saw me pick up the fire axe and I was just swinging my way through the hotel. So that is all of the melee weapons, but like I said, they all have their own unique perks, and it's really up to player choice, but I tend to like the bladed variety of weapons over the blunt variety. Oh my god, there was so many weapons to just do. It was, oh my god, I'm so glad the weapons are done. Now we can move on to characters. And this is our merry band of survivors. From left to right, we have Ellis, Coach, Rochelle, and Nick. So not all too much is really known about the survivors from Left 4 Dead 2. They're kind of more like a self-insert, but at the same time they're not, because they have their own voice lines and they have their own backgrounds. So when I move on and just start talking about them, I'm just going to read their official descriptions off of the Left 4 Dead wiki, just for simplicity's sake, so that there's not a bunch of different conflicting reports. Alright, starting off with Ellis, who is my favorite of the 4 playable protagonists. His age is 23, his hometown is Savannah, Georgia, and it says, Ellis is a mechanic with a love of life, a firm belief in his own immortality, and the ability to treat any setback as a fun dare to impress his friends. Born and raised in Savannah, Ellis divides up his time working at the local garage, hanging out with his buddies, and stopping by for Sunday dinners with mom. Why did anybody want to live anywhere else? Then the zombies had to go and spoil it. Now Ellis is looking for a new thing to occupy his time and finding plenty. It turns out the zombie apocalypse is just one big dare, and there's no shortage of crazy stuff he can try to impress his new buddies. On to Coach, who is my second favorite protagonist. It says his age is 44, again, hometown Savannah, Georgia, and it says Coach has a big heart and a healthy appetite and a wicked swing with a chainsaw. After a knee injury ended his career as a defensive lineman in college, Coach salvaged his physical education degree, barely, and landed a job teaching health at the local high school in his hometown of Savannah. Working as a defensive coordinator for the freshman tour team might have not been the best path to a pro coaching career, but it's come in pretty handy in guiding a group of survivors to safety. Coach has watched his beloved hometown get ravaged by infected, and now it's time to deliver his own brand of Southern hospitality. See, right there with Coach, I think that's perfect for him, and I just like his name, because he's literally like kind of the de facto leader. But that's all there is on Coach. On to Rochelle, who is probably my least favorite of the 4 survivors, but it's only because she was kind of boring for most of the time that I ever played as her when I didn't pick Ellis. But that's because a lot of her voice lines were like removed, but the last stand update added that a lot back. So she's a lot better now, but she's probably just still my least favorite of them. Anyway, her age is 29, her hometown is Cleveland, Ohio, and it says as a low-level associate producer for a big-name news station, Rochelle's job mostly consisted of lugging cables and fetching coffee. But when the outbreak hit and staff started calling in sick, Rochelle got her break, producing a segment for Savannah about the evacuation center located there. She was still setting up cameras when her big story became a war zone. But that doesn't mean she's letting go of her dream job yet. Surviving an apocalypse is just something else she can use her wits and drive to produce the hell out of. On to the 4th and final survivor of our group, Nick. For a very long time, I did not like Nick. I thought he was mean. Granted, I played this game when I was like 6 or 7, so I thought he was mean. I was like, I don't like you. Anyway, his age is 35, his hometown is unknown, and it says a lifetime of drifting from city to city, fighting back alley card games and trying to stay out of jail has taught Nick 2 valuable lessons. Don't trust anyone, and look out for number 1. He'd come down to Savannah looking for some gullible fish on the riverboat gambling cruise circuit. Instead, he found a city to be engulfed by infection. Now he finds himself forced together with 3 complete strangers in a fragile alliance that goes against every instinct he lives by. But he's going to have to learn how to trust them if he wants to survive. So, I keep talking about the survivors and what they're trying to, well, survive, and that would be the infected. The common infected, I'm not really going to go over as they're nothing really like special or particular. They're just, your average run-of-the-mill zombies. These special infected, however, they are worth talking about. We have the Charger, which is the one with the big arm and the tiny arm. Get this, he charges at you with the giant arm, and then he grabs you and pulls you into the ground. You have the Hunter, which is the one with the blue hoodie on. He kind of takes like a stealth-ish kind of route until he starts to crouch or, jump or pounce, and then he becomes the loudest infected on the planet, and he just and just starts screeching. There's the Spitter, which is right next to the Hunter. She spits stomach acid at you, and now you need to make sure that you stay out of any of the green acid that you see, as it will literally burn you away. There's the Jockey, who gets his name from horse jockeys because he jumps on your back and he rides like a horse jockey. There is the Tank, which I'm sure you can figure out who that is, the big beefy guy in the middle. He is called the Tank because he's kind of, think of like a tank like enemy in an RPG where they have a bunch of health and they just deal a bunch of damage. That is exactly the definition of the Tank. There's the Witch, who is the woman on that's kind of like crouched over. Her main thing is you want to stay away from her. She's constantly crying whenever you bump into a witch, but she is dangerous. On any difficulty except expert, she will incapacitate you in one hit. On expert, she straight up kills you. Stay out of the witch's way. She is a force to be reckoned with. Then you have the Boomer, which is next to the witch. He's got the giant stomach. He pukes on you, and he sends down hordes of common infected on you because his puke attracts the infected. And then there's the Smoker, which uses his long tongue-like weapon, I guess you could say, but I think there's also a theory suggesting it's actually his intestines, and that's why it's so long. But he will take you, and he basically pulls you away from your group, and while he's pulling you away, you're getting beaten on by the common infected, or if you're unlucky enough, any of the other infected. That's the whole, I guess you could say, rogues gallery of the special infected, and they are the main zombies they'd be fighting outside of the common infected. Hence why I want to give them their own section, because Left 4 Dead 2 probably wouldn't have as much of an identity without some of these infected. They make the game just as much as the survivors do. Now, I may not have talked about the common infected. However, the uncommon infected is a different story. They have, just like the survivors, their own personality. We're going to start with the clown zombie on the left, and we're just going to go to the right like you do with the special infected. Clown zombie only spawns in Dark Carnival, and he has squeaky shoes and a honkable nose. One, if you hit them with the melee attack 10 times, you get a trophy called Honked, but their squeaky shoes alert all the other infected in the surrounding area. So there could be one clown zombie that just has an entire horde following them. Then you have the riot zombie, who only spawns in the last campaign, the Parish, which, because he's in full riot gear, he is impervious to any forms of damage unless you have to first shove him, hope that he falls onto the ground, and then you can shoot him in the back where he's not protected. We're going to skip the one in the middle there and save him for last. You have the Fallen Survivor, who only spawns in the Parish campaign, which he is a little interesting. He has some sort of like will to kind of live, if that makes any sense. When he sees you, he does not attack you. Actually, that's a lie. Sorry, he attacks you, but the minute you attack him back, he bolts in the other direction and just tries to run away as fast as possible. And when you kill him, he can drop a pipe bomb, a Molotov, pain pills, and a med kit. And this kind of gives it the sense, and again with his name being the Fallen Survivor, he was somebody that was surviving the green flu infection and then fell to it, and he had all his gear on him. Then there is the Sita agent, who only spawns at dead center, and when you shoot them, there is you hear like air kind of expelling from their suit, which proves that the theory that the green flu is always changing, because even though they were in hazmat suits, they must have had to breathe in, because if there was air coming out of their suit, it means their suit wasn't punctured by a bite and they got infected a different way. They also spawn with bile jars. And then last but not least here, we have the construction worker zombies. Due to his earmuffs, he is not alerted by pipe bombs, but the way Valve designed him, he is not alerted by bile jars either. And I think it's just because they put like a blanket of what he's not like alerted by, and that must have been any throwable, which is including the bile jar. He spawns in the Hard Rain campaign because you go through a construction site in that level, so it would make sense to have a construction worker be there. So, I'm sure you noticed when I was going through the uncommon infected, I skipped one, and that is the one in the racing suit. That's Jimmy Gibbs Jr., and I skipped him when going through all the other ones because he deserves his own section. This man, zombie, whatever you want to call it, is an absolute force to be reckoned with. He has 1000 HP, no detachable limbs, and he's fireproof due to his racing suit. He is not infected by pipe bombs or bile bombs. He also, if he hits you, he gives you like an oil effect on your screen that makes it a little hard to see. He has the rarest chance of spawning with 33% chance on the Ancient Finale every 15 real life days. And believe it or not, even though he has all these buffs and has 1000 HP, which is I think an eighth of what the tank has, just to put in perspective, he can actually, funnily enough, be killed with one magnum shot to the head or one solid swing of a melee weapon, which I find really funny. He has all of these super high buffs, but just very simple things will kill him, like it's no big deal. But I figured he deserved an entire section all to himself just because of how rare he is. I've been playing this game for the better part of almost, I don't know, I want to say like maybe 12 years, give or take, because I didn't play it when it first launched, and I have never once seen him. I haven't even spawned him in the console commands, but let alone ever seen him spawn naturally because of how rare he is. Because not only, again, as it said, every 15 days, he then has a 33% chance of spawning on top of that, which is just absurd. But he's really cool, and I want to give him his own little section here.
Forgive us, Jimmy, but we need your car.
I'll be sitting there thinking, what was the point of this? Why did I make this? Why did you sit through almost 20 minutes of some random stranger on the internet rambling about a 15-year-old video game? And that's because this game means a lot to me. I played this game growing up a lot. I played it with my dad. He showed me it. Even every now and then we still go back to it. And it's just, it holds a special place in my heart. I've played a lot of video games since then, and there's been some that are pretty close to it, but none of them will ever actually beat Left 4 Dead 2 as my favorite video game. And with it turning 15, that's a huge milestone for a video game, especially because it's still one of the most played video games on Steam. And I needed to rant about it, I needed to talk about it, I needed to gush as to why I love it so much. And I figured, why not make it in a video? I've always wanted to make YouTube videos. I've made a couple on this channel now, but I think they're delisted by now. And who knows? Maybe nobody's going to see this video. Maybe I'm just screaming into the endless void of videos on YouTube. Or who knows, maybe somebody will find it interesting and they're going to click it, and we'll go from there. But a lot of reviews I see don't ever wrap it up in a meaningful way. And I want to change that. I want to just let people know why I made it. And it's just because it means a lot to me. It always has, and it always will. And I think that's important. Anyway, enough of that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I plan on doing a lot more videos. This is completely unscripted. This entire video was a mess. I apologize for any mistakes. It's been almost 12 months. I don't know why I say 12 months and not a year. But it's been almost a year since I've made a YouTube video like this. And I want to get back into it. So I think it'd be cool to start with my favorite game turning 15. And that's really it. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and sharing. Comment if you want me to do another video like this, if you have a review for a game in mind, because I love taking fan suggestions. That's all. Hope you have a great rest of your day, night, evening when you're watching this. Bye-bye!